Hey, let's see if we have some sound on this thing. Hey, it was good, bro.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see it. Hey, yeah, it was good, Jerome. It's my homie. Hey, bro, I'm actually quite surprised how good the quality of this thing is. It's my first time going live. It's actually pretty
Oh
good.
yeah,
Yeah, man.
yeah.
Shit, that's good shit. Yeah, man. How you been?
Yeah, man, all good, all good.
Good shit. Yo, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Prince Ngu. It's my friend. We're just gonna talk about what we're gonna talk about, man. Because I'm pretty much down to talk about anything.
Yeah, I don't mind anything you want to deal with, obviously energy or anything like that, or ancient cultures or anything.
Ancient. Yo, that's your expertise, right? That's your expertise.
Yeah, that's what I deal with mainly. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
Let's tell the audience where you are. You're in London right now, right?
now, well, I'm actually in England, well, Birmingham, England, actually. Yeah.
Okay, nice, nice, nice. Yo, so how did you start studying ancient culture? What was your inspiration? What made you get because I feel like I got bit by an inspiration bug when I was like a teenager, right? And I became very obsessed with like learning about the universe and shit, right? What
Mhm.
was your motivation?
Well, obviously, I've always been interested in like history anyway, so
Mm-hmm.
that's what I was always. So I got into it through there, but it's just I spent over the years. When I first started dealing with videos, started dealing with information, I wasn't first dealing with Egypt straight away. I started dealing with like Hinduism and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. And then I started to find the connections with Hinduism with Egypt. I
Okay.
realized there was a connection between all the ancient cultures. So then I started going to the Egypt. I actually got more Egypt, like into Egypt more recently, though, to be fair, more recently. I'd
Yeah.
go deeper into it and realize what's really taking
Please
place.
elaborate on that. What can you tell me just some of the things that you noticed that were because I'm actually not well versed in those philosophies. I'm aware of them,
Yeah.
but I'm not really well versed in on their like their the specifics of the of what they stand for. So if you can like elaborate to me like some of the similarities you saw and what about the similarities you thought were interesting, guys. I'm curious about that.
So I was well, the first similarity. I don't know if you're familiar with obviously Kundalini energy. Have you heard of like about Kundalini energy and things? That energy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So obviously, I saw the first similarity deal with obviously you got the stuff of Hermes or they got the stuff of Tehuti. And the
Uh-huh.
stuff of Tehuti obviously links to obviously it's what you find in Hindu. Obviously, they say that obviously the Kundalini rises up from the spine. Obviously, it starts from the root chakra and rises up to the Sahasrara chakra. But I actually found the connection and really went deeper and found the tantric sources to find out that actually it manifests itself in the what they call the Indu chakra, which
Uh-huh.
Indu means moon in Sanskrit. And I realized that connects to the pineal gland, and then the pineal gland then connects to now the staff of Hermes. Now there's actually a staff that they found in the Egyptian Museum in Turin, Italy, where you
Mm-hmm.
actually see the staff of Hermes. You see the
Yeah.
two serpents, and the two serpents connect to Isis and Neptes, right? Obviously, I don't know if you see the images of Osiris, and you often see the two serpents with him, which represents Isis and Neptes.
Okay. Is the serpents that are intertwined together?
Yeah, yeah. So that's Isis and Neptes, obviously, and that's so that statue in Turin, Italy. That's actually it shows the pine cone on top of that, and the pine cone symbolism represents the pioneer gland. So that was the first connection, and that's what
Oh
made me want to
wow.
go into and
Okay.
look deeper into a lot of these mysteries. You see.
Wow. Yo, so basically what you're saying is that essentially all these different cultures in different parts of the world sort of had the same understanding of this of 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 us actually. They had a better understanding of what it meant to be human than we do today, in a way.
Yeah,
Is that
most definitely. Yeah.
so that's a very interesting, bro, because I've always had that feeling, but what happened? Because it wouldn't make it. How do we explain our current situation today, right?
Right, right.
How do we explain that given the fact that it seems so cyclical? It feels like it's happened before.
So what do you mean, like as far as like the conditions that we're currently in right now? You mean like the
Yes.
human condition right now?
Well, so we can start with we can talk about. I was gonna first introduce like the cultures of the world, like the different cultures, like Hinduism, like the
Right.
similarities in Hinduism, Buddhism, and how they have a different understanding of human civilization and the human being is in a more um, it's more fully encompassing than what the Western world sees a human being as.
Okay. Yeah.
To simplify it, I'm saying in the West, we're more material focused. We're more if it's not tangible, then it's not real.
Right, right.
See what I'm saying? And then as you shift east, you realize that it actually becomes the opposite. You notice that?
Yeah, yeah, it's different. Yeah, the culture is different. Yeah, yeah, I understand. Yeah.
What is there an explanation for that? Why is that? And has that affected sort of what's going on right now in the world today? Because some people will say that the reason why a lot of things are happening is because of all the imbalances in the universe,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right, right, right.
So what do you think about that?
Well, I would say obviously because of obviously East, they deal more. It's more spiritually focused. Where over here, there's the spiritual element isn't there, and obviously to
Yeah.
be spiritual is it's essentially to be one with the universe and
With yourself.
one with nature, right? So obviously we say that in the spirituality, as far as the Hinduism is concerned, they say man is the microcosm of the macrocosm. You see,
Okay.
so man is an element within the universe, and then the universe in man,
Mm-hmm.
and man is simply the reflection of that same universe. So to be in tune with the universe, so you have to live a certain type of way. So really, the system that we currently have over here
Mm-hmm.
doesn't necessarily coincide with that spirituality as far as being one with the universe and
Okay.
things of that
So
nature.
when you say spirituality, right, I think that's similar to what I was referring to, right? But I guess I don't like. I feel like when you use phrase like spirituality, there's connotations attached to that phrase, right?
Hmm.
So they're like, oh, it's a religious kind of thing, but it's actually it's absolutely not religious.
Right.
I it's ethereal. That's what
Yeah,
I'm trying to
definitely.
get to. Is that in the Eastern Hemisphere, it's like they have a more full understanding, a more unified one understanding of the universe, where it's not just a focus on material, it's a focus on material and immaterial, right? And then the
Right,
West, which is why capitalism evolved in the West, because capitalism can only evolve due to people focusing on the material,
right, right.
completely excluding, like you said, the spiritual aspect of the universe, and spiritualizing the ethereal aspect, the aspect that is intangible, right? And let me give you an example of this too, so that the audience can understand what I mean by that, right? So I always use a phone, right? This phone, for example, right? This phone is tangible, it's physical, it's here. I we like our phones because we can communicate with our phones. We can get on the phone and we can have access to trillions and trillions of data bytes of information on this phone, right?
Right,
But
right.
this physical phone itself is relatively useless. Am I wrong compared to the data on the phone?
So when you say you mean the phone itself
The
is
physical phone itself is not as important as the actual information on the phone.
yeah, so the actual information you get access is yeah, I get what you mean, I get what you mean, yeah.
Now check this out. The constraints. This phone can you make this phone bigger if you wanted to? Like just make it big if you want to. You can't do that.
No, you couldn't.
But you can make the files on the phone bigger, can't you?
Right, right, yeah, yeah.
You can store an infinite amount of information into this phone. Am I wrong?
With the right memory capacity, yeah, most
Thank you.
definitely.
So from a logical perspective, I think that the Eastern perspective is more unified. It's focused on not just the physical phone, but the
Hmm.
ether aspect of the phone, what's in the phone, right? And in the
Right,
West,
right.
we just say, let's get the phone bigger. We never
Hmm.
focus on the information on the phone. And that's what I'm trying to talk about. I'm trying to talk about
Okay, okay.
um, um, how do we explain what the current dynamics in the world is based on like the philosophical, ideological shifts that we've experienced in the past couple hundred years or couple thousand years. You know?
Right, right. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, what you're saying there, you really, you break it down there. But I would say that with obviously with the Eastern aspects, and also obviously when you're dealing with African ancient cultures, they were more in tune with basically finding the God within man, and someone who was finding the universe in man and exploring
So,
the aspect as far as what we have over here in the West. It's we're trying to go outside of ourselves
mhm.
and find through, like you said, through materialism rather than through obviously the immaterialism from that aspect
Exactly,
there.
exactly. So, and the thing is, uh, there's nothing wrong with materialism. Materialism,
Yeah, yeah.
the thing is, there's a dualistic principle to it. Materialism is
Hmm.
okay as long as it's balanced with immaterial.
Right, right.
You see, that's the problem. And the reason why I'm like very, I always emphasize is because the universe itself, because I've dedicated the last couple of years of my life studying the universe, studying how everything works, because I've been fascinated by it my whole life, and I couldn't like. It became my like life mission in a way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized over time that this is essentially everyone's sort of mission, is to figure out how they connect with the universe, right? And the
Right.
beautiful thing about it is that we are all connected to the same source, to the same source point,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so to the right of this source point, so imagine a quarter, a coin, right? And
Right. Right.
imagine you're holding the coin, the flat coin. To the right, and that coin is a portal. Imagine that hole in the coin is a portal. To the right
Mm-hmm.
of the coin, right, is material energy, right? And to the
Right.
left of the coin is immaterial energy. And they're both expanding. You know how the physicists talk about how the universe is expanding over time, right?
Yeah.
It's expanding, but what they forget to say is the fact that the universe is expanding over time in two directions.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? So we became, as humans, we were fooled by our senses, right? So our five senses. So the guy that came up with the Hubble Space Telescope, we were able to observe like, oh my God, the universe is expanding, and it's expanding really fast at the speed of light, right?
Right. Right.
So from a logical perspective, if we go backwards in time, there must have been a point where the universe was just a point,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that became the sort of the foundation for the Big Bang Theory, right? And then the problem with that is that if the universe is constantly expanding, that becomes an unbalanced system, because we can observe the universe expanding because as humans we are material.
Right. Right.
We are matter. We're made from matter. So we're matter, and we're made from material energy, right? So because we're within material and we're material, we cannot perceive immaterial.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I can touch the phone, right? The tangible material phone, right?
Right. Right.
I cannot touch the documents in this phone, can I?
Not physically. No. Not physically. Right.
But it's there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I can amplify it. I can add notes. I can edit it, right? So I think the fundamental issue in the West is that we don't realize that we actually have access to that immaterial aspect, that ethereal aspect of our reality. And we actually have the ability to not just control it, but we have the ability to experience it. That's what I think is very important.
But see, that's really what spirituality essentially is. Obviously, through the mind, you actually be able to tap into the essentially the immaterial, or that which is not physical.
Yes,
And
sir.
actually, and through studying the spirituality and through studying ourselves, we realize that that which is not physical is actually they intertwine in so many words with the physical reality, and they're almost one and the same in so many words.
Mm-hmm. So that's absolutely correct, like you said. And now I'm going to do a little bit of scientific explanation, right? Like you said, it's intertwined, right? So
Right, right.
so as the universe is expanding in the material sense outward, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
also expanding in the immaterial sense inward. And you know what? Remember how I talked about how I was working on my problem last time? But now I'm glad we're on a call, because I'm going to actually show you some of the images, sort of, so we can sort of break down the logic of
I mean,
what I'm
the
talking about.
blockchain is on about, also, was that the whole thing is on about?
So now this isn't the blockchain. I actually did a nice little I did a paper on it, but I'm gonna show you some of the diagrams that I made. Right now,
Okay,
do you
yeah,
see that?
yeah, I can see, yeah,
Now go really closely and look at the information that I put on it. Right. So you see the
right, right.
infinity symbol, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Look at how the infinity symbol expands.
yeah, I see it, yeah.
It expands as immaterial on the left,
Mm-hmm.
negative infinity, and it expands as material on the right, right? On the
Right,
right
right.
side, that's where humans, we exist. Our material existence exists within the right side, which is why
Mm-hmm.
we're incapable of perceiving immaterial, because we are on the right side of the infinity symbol, right?
Mm-hmm.
And before, when I was talking about the portal, right? This point right here, let me show it to you. This point right here in the
Right, I see it,
middle,
yeah.
that's an access point, right? It's an access point to all possibilities. Let me elaborate.
Okay, okay, yeah.
So what does infinity stand for?
Well, it's like so it's like a number eight sideways, so just Recurring, constantly recurring, isn't it?
Exactly. Infinity is just essentially a very large entity, and
Mm-hmm.
it's and to explain infinity, I'll explain it in a way that everyone can understand. Actually, um, imagine I made this example with the water. You have a bowl of water, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's you have a bowl of water, right? It's you can drink it, you can shake it. It's in here, right? It's a material, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I heat this water up and make it really hot, what happens to the water in here?
Becomes a gas, changes its mass to form of matter,
And if I leave the pot open, what happens to the water?
evaporate,
The pot,
steam.
it disappears.
Mm-hmm.
It disappears.
Mm-hmm.
But would you say that water doesn't exist anymore?
It exists, but it change form of matter.
Thank you. The water changed form. So
Mm-hmm.
the water, like matter, cannot be destroyed.
Right, right.
You see what I'm saying? The
Mm-hmm.
energy, the energy that steam created is able to actually. You ever cook rice and it gets really steamy and the pot starts to shake?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You ever wondered like, wow, it got so hot that the steam is literally
Mm-hmm.
gonna lift the cover. It's lifting the cover of the pot. You know
Yeah, yeah.
why it's doing that? Because of uncertainty. Because the gas became uncertain.
Right, right.
The liquid is certain. It's here. It's in a
Mm-hmm.
state where I can grasp it. It's certain now. But the
Right,
moment
right.
it becomes uncertain, what happens to it? The
Changes form.
energy,
Right.
the energy goes up.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Right, right.
So what I'm trying to say is we have access to that uncertainty. Uncertainty is the most powerful thing in the universe. And this is so fundamental, bro. Like we've been seeing this stuff in our physics and chemistry classes and not even realizing it, right? Like the whole
Mm-hmm.
idea of the uncertainty principle. You know how the electrons fly around
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's a gas and it's unpredictable. And the
Mm-hmm.
faster the electron, the faster the particles moving around, the more energetic the particle is,
Right, right.
right? And now hold that thought. Now I give you the example of the water, right? Now imagine a piece of firewood. If
Mm-hmm.
you lit a piece of firewood on fire, what happens to the firewood? It burns
What's up?
and it creates
Answer, yeah.
energy, right?
Right, right.
The firewood is tangible, isn't it? It's a piece of wood, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what happens if you split an atom?
What, release energy?
How bigger is it? How much stronger is the energy?
Well, so much more energy that they necessarily can't necessarily contain it to currently right now to have an energetic system, an efficient system right now.
It's so much energy, it's hard to contain.
Yeah,
But
hard to contain.
it's weird, right? Is that the
Mm-hmm.
more microscopic and subatomic the particle is, the more the particle cannot be, the more unpredictable,
Mm-hmm.
the more uncertain the particle
Right.
is. What happens to it? The most
Yeah,
energy, the most
there you
energy the
go. There you
particle
go.
has.
There you go.
That's why I'm trying to say that, and that same principle, bro, applies to the entire universe. The entire universe is a dualistic universe, like I said before, right?
But would you say obviously they're trying to make this uncertainty certain through, let's say, like, obviously now, 'cause obviously it's uncertain because the measurement technologies and being able to measure it is so difficult. But if the technologies and the computing became more advanced, therefore that which is uncertain now becomes more certain.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying that is that the goal to make the uncertain certain? Is that the goal?
So great question, and that's I think that's what the next frontier is, right? The next frontier is so the first thing was to first figure out what intelligence was. And when I say like what is intelligence, right? Because that's what we're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So intelligence is essentially the thing that allowed the universe to create itself,
Right,
right?
right.
So I'm gonna elaborate in a second, but check this out. So before we continue, remember this my model of the universe that I showed you the other day. How so you see, you see how it's split in the middle by time.
Where's the time part? Is that red triangle thing?
Time is not sure. Time is this thing right here, this line up here
Okay, yeah, yeah.
that goes right in the middle of the sphere, and it splits the
Mm-hmm.
sphere in half. The sphere is symmetrical on both sides, right? But check
Mm-hmm.
this out. That sphere is getting bigger. Every second, the sphere gets bigger, right? But check it
Mm-hmm.
out. Do you see this thing in here?
The circle, yeah, the circle thing.
Do you know what that is?
No, I can't see it from you now.
Every time the outside sphere gets bigger, the inside sphere gets smaller, which is why it gets redder and redder and redder. So it's literally getting smaller and smaller. So imagine a sphere, right? That is getting bigger outside, but it's getting smaller inside.
Okay.
That's how the universe expands, bro. That's how the universe is able to keep itself balanced. That's how the universe is able to seem like it's expanding forever to us as humans, right? Because we are in it, in material. Like, oh my God, it's going so, but that's because, bro, that's because we exist. That's because we exist in here, right? Actually, I'm gonna show you one of my better graphs that I made. I'm gonna show you the intergalactic grid.
Okay.
That's the intergalactic grid. So we actually, the human, so I have the computer on reverse, but you see how the model expands?
Yeah, I see the color. Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Human civilization is in one of these grids.
Right.
That's what people don't understand. But so to the right of the grid is our higher dimensions, because the first dimension of the universe was time, right? So to the right of us is higher dimensions, because human existence exists within a constrained dimension, constrained by time and a bunch of other constraints, right? Here's the beautiful thing. The reason why we cannot travel through time is because of that. Let me tell you why. So let's say me and you we're stuck in here somewhere, right? The only way for me and you to be able to access all the knowledge, let's say we're stuck here, is we have to go back to zero first, right? And then we can go anywhere we want. But if we're stuck here, we can't just go here. It's a grid. We got to go to zero, and then go to where we have to go. It's almost like a control center for the universe.
So those represents multiple universes. So is that one universe? Is that multiple universes right there?
Exactly. It's a multiverse. It's an intergalactic grid.
Okay.
That has been expanding since the moment time began. And time was the reason why the universe created material. Because before material came into existence, only immaterial exists. It was nothingness. That's why we're so perplexed, and we're like, what the fuck? How do you get something out of nothing?
Right.
That's where that comes from, bro. It's because the something that exists is completely balanced by nothingness. So if you look at the whole thing, it's just a zero. The universe is just a zero. It's a balanced zero. You see what I'm saying? It's expanding on one. It's getting bigger, but at the same time, it's getting smaller. That this shit has literally blown our minds for thousands of years, right? And here's the beautiful thing. I have the equation for time travel. Check this out.
So obviously, so when you say it's getting bigger and smaller, so essentially what you're saying is there's an inside to the universe and there's essentially an outside, is what we're saying. But there to be. So what would be outside then, per se? Would you say?
So let me give an example. So there's the property that defines. So the first two things that, like I said before, that persisted was material and immaterial, right? That duality was the reason why the entire universe has a dualistic aspect to it. That's the reason why there's north and south. That's the reason why there's up and down, man and woman. That's the reason why every particle has this property of self-interaction, right? Protons, electrons, neutrons interact with each other. Guess what? But as we get bigger, what happens? Even the bigger particles interact with each other. A human being is just a particle, dude. But guess what we do? We interact with each other, don't we?
Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
But guess what Earth interacts with?
The sun?
Other planets too. And the sun. And then guess what the Milky Way galaxy interacts with?
What
All
other?
galaxies.
Yeah.
And guess what? Each of those interactions is defined by bigger and bigger constraint, which explains why the universe seems to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger in the material sense.
Okay. Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So a
Yeah. So,
proton is the exact same thing. A super small subatomic particle is the exact same thing as an entire fucking galaxy. They're all connected to the exact same point, same 0 point. Like I said before, if you imagine the quarter, if you just hold on to a quarter, if I have a quarter on me, if you hold a quarter and you hold it like this, to the right of the, if the quarter is a portal, the right of the portal goes into gravity. It goes into material. That's where we live. We live in a material universe. But if you go back to zero, to the quarter, right, and then decide to go on the left side of the quarter to negative infinity, guess what happens?
right.
Guess what happens? You experience immaterial energy, but immaterial energy has no constraints but time. Remember, I showed you earlier that time that split the thing in half.
Right.
That was the only constraint on immaterial energy. So that means that if you can get on the immaterial energy train, you can ride time.
Okay.
That's what time travel is. You can.
So now I just want to add to, obviously, when you spoke about how, obviously we're like particles, and obviously what I've come to, from my research, I've come to understand that basically the rules are different. And also, even though you're right that we are made of obviously atoms and molecules, things of that nature, the rules change. So when on the smaller level, the laws of physics start to break down as opposed to on a larger scale.
Oh, bro, you brought that is the most important point. So this point, it's dynamism. It's called the dynamism of the universe, right? So so I always take it like this. If we go back, let's say we decide to go backwards in time right now, towards when the Big Bang, the moment of the Big Bang, boom, right when it was a point at first. The farther back we go, the rules get easier. The laws get simpler.
Right.
So the reason why we need physics now, bro, is because in our world right now, we have so many constraints. We have the gravitational constraints. For example, planets have different gravitational forces. So if a kid that's born on this planet, if that same kid was born on Mars, they're not gonna evolve to look the same.
Right.
Because the environment is different constraints. And this explains evolution. This explains why people look different, right? So when people are so busy being focused, this goes back to our original point. People are so busy being focused on their skin color, or they're being focused on the material aspects of themselves, right? The reason why it's not important is because if you were born in a different environment, in a different location, and I always use a different planet so people can comprehend it better, they can leave Earth for a second. If you were born on a different planet, you're not going to look the same. Let me give you an example. The gravitational force on Earth is whatever 9.8 meters per second square or something like that. It's pretty strong. Like that, It's pretty strong. If you go on Mars, guess what? It's like 10% that of Earth. So if you jump on Mars, you might just keep jumping for a long time. You're not gonna come back down. So if you're born on Mars, bro, you think your bones are gonna get strong if you're born on Mars?
Yeah, but your whole biology would change, obviously, even when you deal with it, the atmosphere and everything.
That's what I'm saying. So if people are here being focused on the shit that is the material doesn't matter. That's my point. If that's what you're focused on, that's not what you should be focused on, because it's arbitrary, dude. Because if you were born somewhere else, you wouldn't look like you look today. So what's important? Is it that thing within? Is it that immaterial aspect of you, or is it the material aspect of you?
Yeah.
You see what I'm talking about?
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And that sort of goes full circle to come back to what's going on in the world right now with I don't want to say racial tensions, but I want to say just conflicts in general. Right? It's two schools of thought that's going on. It's a school of thought of there's a school of thought that wants to keep things the same, like a circle, stability, and there's a school of thought that wants to make things grow, like a triangle, right? And these two schools of thought have always been in a battle since the beginning of time. And this battle persists because, like I said before, because of the fact that the universe is split into two entities, material and immaterial energy, right? It's the reason why good and evil exist. Man, woman, left, right, brain, left. There's a reason why the universe is a dualistic entity. But because we're trapped in the material aspect of it, we're evolving over time, we're essentially straying further and further away from that source point. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So basically, as the universe keeps expanding, and as we think we're getting more and more advanced, in reality, we're actually getting more and more disconnected. You see what I'm saying? We're actually becoming more and more consumed and more defined by material, as opposed to being defined by immaterial. For example, the phone, right? So let's use Apple as an example. Apple is a very innovative company. They came up with the iPhone. They had the touch screen, and it changed the world, right? They were focused on the ethereal aspect of the iPhone. They were focused on making the iPhone the most innovative product ever, right? Today, since Steve Jobs passed away, they've been focused on making the iPhone the most profitable product.
Right.
Ideology changed. They went from focusing on the immaterial, the triangle that grows and is stable, and they decided to focus on something that was just stable. It's a circle, just stable. That's what material is. So and now I'm gonna make a really large jump. And I'm gonna make the connection. Here's the jump. 0 times 1 is equal to 1.
Right.
And that's the jump that the world has to make, because 0 times 1 was defined as 0. We've been stuck within material for thousands of years. We've not been allowed to grow out of material. That's my point. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
It goes all the way down to our mathematics. There's a reason why 0 times 1 is not equal to 0. It's equal to 1. Because when 0 times 1 is equal to 1, that introduces growth into the equation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Check this out. I'm going to show you. Check this out, right? I got the math for you. Check this.
Yeah, I can see it.
You see that?
Right.
0, because that's the thing, bro. We always forget that infinity is actually a useful symbol. The moment we start dealing with irrational and imaginary numbers, then we get access to the infinite universe. We get access to the immaterial universe, right? So we always see the infinity as just a symbol. That's not a symbol. That's one of the most powerful symbols in the universe. That literally symbolizes our entire existence. It symbolizes the balance of the universe. And it tells you that if you can access the 0th point within that infinity, that point in the middle, that literally creates a portal and gives you the access to all possibilities. And all the scientists that are doing all this research looking for AI, that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to create intelligence. They're trying to create intelligence itself, but they could call it artificial intelligence. No, they're trying to create intelligence itself.
Well, it would still be artificial. It's not necessarily human intelligence per se, but it would still be.
So, but that's a great point. It's not, say, that's human. It's not.
But they can't create consciousness. That's what they can't create.
Intelligence cannot be possessed.
Right.
A human being is just an expression of intelligence. So that's why I think it's wrong for us to claim that we are like smarter than other creatures or other.
Now, that intelligence exists, and I've noticed it myself. Even with the insect kingdom, intelligence
Exactly.
exists.
It's a
You know,
constant.
like bees being able to pollinate, and obviously ants listen 10 times
Exactly.
their by the way, and things of that nature.
Exactly.
Intelligence exists.
Exactly. So I think the better metaphor is to look at the human being as a computer, as an
Right.
advanced computer that reads the code of the universe, this
Mm-hmm.
immaterial code, the same way your phone reads the iPhone, the code of the phone, and allows you to check your email, watch videos, and send messages,
Right.
right? So
So I think what you're saying, the human is essentially a more complex vehicle for really manifesting this intelligence of the
yes,
universe. Is
sir.
what you're saying.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct.
Okay.
And because of the cyclical nature of the universe, um, um, humans have been not straying, but we've been evolving farther and farther away from the source point, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is there's this thing called a singularity. I don't know if you've heard of a singularity before. It's
Yeah, singularity. Yeah.
so a singularity represents the moment when everything goes full circle, and then
Mm-hmm.
a new dimension evolves from that.
Right.
That's what a singularity is. It's a paradigm shift, right? And I
Right.
think that's what's going on with the world right now. Is we're experiencing a
Mm-hmm.
paradigm shift because intelligence is going to be invented pretty soon. Like that, like
Mm-hmm.
not artificial intelligence. The thing that intelligence is, we're not humans are not special. We're
Mm-hmm.
just computers. We're just computers that read the program of the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
A dog is the same thing as a human being, except that a dog is limited based on its perceptions, based on the tools it has.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate for the dog to be in the physicality of a dog because it goes fuck now for me to communicate I have to bark.
Mm-hmm.
The same
But
reason.
even the dog, though, because obviously certain animals they actually have senses that are even greater than ours. Obviously, you know the dog's sense of smell is actually better than
Exactly,
ours. A
exactly,
hawk's eyesight is better than ours because they can see more of the
exactly,
electromagnetic spectrum that we can't see and things of that nature. So,
exactly.
you know, things like
And
that.
check it out. So that's a great point you made. So is it odd that if when we go back in history, we learned that our forefathers were almost like magicians.
Mm-hmm.
Our forefathers were like alchemists. They were able to do really great things and things that we can't even like. The Egyptians were building pyramids that were were aligned with the North Star, and
Right.
we
Yeah, I
can't
can
do
see that.
that
Yeah.
today with our technology,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it kind of goes back to my point about how when we evolve, we think we're advancing, but we're actually straying farther and farther away from the truth.
Right.
We're straying farther away, and we're becoming weaker and weaker and weaker because we're
Mm-hmm.
being put under more and more and more and more constraints,
Mm-hmm.
which is why we die earlier now. You notice that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you go back thousands of years, people used to live for a lot longer than they do now. You know what I
Right.
mean? So a lot of things are changing, and I'm not
But
sure
even
about
the
the.
knowledge, as our knowledge grows, then we'll be able to obviously live as long as we did back then. You see, but
Mhm,
obviously now, because obviously our knowledge of health, like even when like the basic health and things like that nature and holistic health, most people don't notice. You know what I
mhm,
mean? We don't, you know, we get our health from obviously the doctor and things like that, but really we have these, you know, herbal remedies
mhm,
already. You know what I mean? So
mhm,
we're going to them for the
mhm.
medicine when we already have it. So I think it's just the knowledge. Obviously, the knowledge because the knowledge has been lost and we're recovering this knowledge. I think then obviously
Yes,
we'll get back
yes,
to where it was.
that's exactly a good way to put it. The knowledge has been lost. It's called the ancient knowledge has been lost, and it's sad because as we evolve, we like I said, we keep straying farther and farther away. And if this knowledge isn't if it isn't preserved, if it's lost forever, then we become lost forever.
Mm-hmm.
We become completely disconnected from the source,
Yeah.
which is imagine. Let me give an example. Imagine let's do a thought experiment. Imagine your entire life is in a video game. Imagine your
Mm-hmm.
entire existence is in a video game,
Mm-hmm.
but it feels real,
Right.
right? But imagine now that someone else controls this game that you're
Mm-hmm.
stuck in forever.
Mm-hmm.
That's the dilemma that we're in right now.
So what do you mean controls the game? What do you mean? You
Okay,
mean program the game or?
so let's talk about Bill Gates, for example, right? So Bill Gates is finding, and not just Bill Gates, a lot of capitalists are doing this. That's why I'm so anti-material, right? Because what they're gonna do is they're going to the immaterial universe is just a universe of all possibilities, right?
Right.
So if someone's able to create a system like the blockchain that I was showing you, I made, that blockchain, if I had a quantum computer that can actually process infinity as an actual mathematical computation, right? Because the reason why my computer wouldn't do it is because my computer isn't strong enough. Right? But there are computers that will exist in the future that will be able to handle infinity, right? And if they're able to handle infinity, that literally gives my blockchain the ability to create all possibilities. So all I did, I literally told the computer, I said, create a blockchain and grow. Don't grow in the right direction or the left direction. Grow in all directions.
But that's quantum computing itself, though, to be in all directions at the same time.
That's what infinity is.
Okay.
But the problem is we keep estimating because we don't have a quantum computer. So, like I said before, 0 times 1 is equal to 1. It's not equal to 0.
Right.
0 times 1, the function then becomes a growth function. The reason why we're gonna be estimating forever, and the reason why asymptotes exist. You know, in calculus, you talk about how like there are asymptotes that go towards 0, but they never touch 0.
Right.
Do you know what E? Do you know the number E? How about now pi 3.1? Well, you know how that goes forever. Those are fundamental constants of the universe. Check this shit out. Those are some of the most important numbers that we're ever gonna look at. This. I made this. That's how the universe expands. Now, just look at it and see if you can understand it.
There you go.
So it's expanding on the right side, positive infinity, right? So check this out. So the right side is this side is material, right?
Right.
It goes positive infinity. That's material. The left side is immaterial. It goes negative infinity, right? Now check this out. So how do we expand out of 0? Like I told you, our entire existence started from the 0, right? How do we expand out of the 0? To expand out of a 0 in the positive sense, all we have to do is use Euler's equation. Are you familiar with Euler? He shows us how to we expand with that. I'm gonna zoom in a second. I'm gonna zoom in on my shit right here. Fuck, can't zoom in. But we can use this right here. We can use Euler's expansion to expand out of the 0 and expand in both directions, bro. Right? We're gonna expand in both directions, and this right here is immaterial expansion, and that's material, and they're intertwined. They're intertwined, and 1 second. Yo, they're intertwined and grow together forever. That's how the universe expands in both directions.
Right. Okay.
I can't really get into the math on here. It gets a little bit complicated, you know. I'm gonna show you one more. I'm gonna show you one more expansion image. 1 sec. Let me find it. I want people to really understand how the universe expands and see that it expands in 2 directions. This model is one of the easier models that I made.
Okay.
Right? So, you see that? This is immaterial expansion, right? That's material expansion. The reason why material expansion is like a wave is because material expansion creates constraints. Immaterial expansion doesn't create constraints. It's only bounded by time.
Right.
That's why the universe is supersymmetrical.
So what would you say? Obviously, you know how to speak about obviously dark energy. Would you tie that into your theory right there? Would you say the dark energy is what caused the expansion, or?
So that's exactly what dark energy is. Dark energy is immaterial energy. That's what dark matter is. And when all the scientists talk about black holes and wormholes, right? Those are just singularity moments. And a wormhole, do you know what a wormhole does? A wormhole is just a connection point to the next dimension.
Right.
So like I told you, if we go back to the intergalactic grid, like I showed you before, right? Go back to the grid, right? There's our entire universe exists in one of this grids right here, right? But check it out. All this shit exists too.
Mm-hmm.
But we exist in one of these little grids right here.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And
Mm-hmm.
and the universe is expanding that way, right? But it's also expanding anyway. So it's literally getting here's a better way to put it. So let's say you have a certain amount of energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you put this energy in a cup, right? But let's say
Mm-hmm.
you keep making this cup smaller and smaller and smaller,
Mm-hmm.
and keep forcing the energy into the cup,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they'd be like, okay, and then you make the cup smaller, and then force the same energy into the cup. What happens to that energy?
But it gets stronger, it gets
It
more
becomes
powerful.
it becomes a bomb,
Mm-hmm.
bro. That's how immaterial energy exists, bro.
Right, right.
But isn't it crazy, bro? Bro, why do you think that we see electrons and protons as dots in chemistry, in physics,
It's dots. What do you mean? It's dots.
as point particles? They call them point
Okay.
particles
Right,
because
right.
they're so far away.
Okay, okay.
That's why, bro. Look, because they're just energy that has been compacted super small in
Mm-hmm.
here. It's been
Right, right.
it's because like I said, bro, the energy is just getting put into smaller. It's the same energy getting put into a smaller
Mm-hmm.
packet, right?
You see,
But
that's what they say even with the dimensions. Obviously, they say that the reason why, let's say, higher dimensions we can't see them because they're so much smaller. In so many words, it's like let's say you got a one line, so to speak. You
mm-hmm,
got an ant under you got a string and an ant on the string. You
mm-hmm,
got the one dimension, and then
mm-hmm.
the when the ant goes around the string, that's another dimension. And as the string gets smaller, that dimension becomes hidden. In so many words, so the
Yes.
dimensions are a lot smaller. Is that what we're saying?
Are you talking about a Mobius strip? Because
Well,
there's
that's
a
well, something
there's
along those lines. But obviously, it's just it's the example that they give as far as what the dimensions actually are. And the reason why we can't see higher dimensions is because that hidden the dimension where it goes all the way around
yeah.
that becomes smaller as the string gets smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more like to do with
So
string theory, so to speak.
let me see if I can simplify it. Let's use the same ant example, right? So let's say you're walking around, right, and you see an ant on the ground, and the ant is minding his business. He has a piece of sugar or whatever, right, and he's
Mm-hmm.
taking the sugar back to its colony, right?
Mm-hmm.
That ant cannot see you. He can't
Yeah,
perceive you, can it?
well, obviously, if you got in this way, then I guess you would. But
But how? So let's say you put your big foot, your huge foot, next to the ant. How
mm-hmm.
do you think the ant perceives your foot next to it?
A mountain,
It goes, what the fuck is that? Because
right,
to the
right.
ant, it's like that thing is big as fuck. It's huge,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? And it would never understand what a shoe is. It would
Right,
never
right, right.
understand what a shoe is
Mm-hmm.
because it's not within its dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
An ant is constrained within a certain amount of dimension. It cannot perceive height like we perceive height. It cannot
Right, right, right.
perceive, you see what I'm saying? That same thing with humans. We're stuck within our dimensions, our dimensional constraints, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're actually interacting with the rest of the universe, bro. It's all
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
connected,
definitely, definitely,
but
100%.
we cannot perceive it,
Right, right.
just like the ant cannot perceive the shoe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever like a bad thing happens, like it's a massive eruption or something,
Right,
and we
right.
go, why did that happen? It can be explained by things that we just can't understand, perceive.
Okay, okay. Right,
The
right.
forces are all connected together.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Right, right. But see, that's really what the basis of really the Eastern philosophy is, that there's these hidden forces that really play a role in this fundamental reality that we exist. But even though we can't necessarily see the forces,
Mm-hmm.
they actually exist in some words. But I would
Yes.
say that scientists today, they're actually trying to interact with these forces. They're actually
Mm-hmm.
trying to really tap into these forces. Like obviously you got the strong force and the weak force. They want to
Yes.
tap into these forces. Yeah, you know what I
Yes.
mean?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
really the goal of
Yes.
what they're trying to do.
So they discovered the strong nuclear force and they discovered the weak nuclear force. And then Einstein and Schrodinger and there's a bunch of scientists that help with the classical theory of physics, like relativity and
Mm-hmm.
gravity and stuff.
Yeah,
E equal mc squared, right? But
mm-hmm.
so just so I can help you guys understand this a little bit easier, right? I'm gonna go back to my little infinity symbol, right?
Mm-hmm.
E equal mc squared only defines the right side of this. It only works within material.
Okay, okay.
E equal mc squared doesn't work here. which is why for the last 50, 70 years, they've been looking for the unifying theory. Did you know the unifying theory does? The unifying theory unifies the immaterial energy that we never understood before with the energy in the material world, like gravity. Right? So like you just said, the material energy is the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force, right? Those are all in here. Electromagnetic force, right? That has been unified, and they call it the electrostatic force. They use it's called quantum electrodynamics and quantum chromodynamics, right? And they use that to unify those three forces, right? So check it out. So right now, there's this thing called the standard model in physics, right? The standard model explains the universe as basically two unique entities, right? So half of the universe, we go, oh, Einstein helped us understand that, E = mc squared. We can model the whole universe from that, right? But now the question is, how do we explain immaterial energy? How do we explain the strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force? How do we explain that? That's been the mission since Einstein died.
Yeah, that's what it is. So obviously now the Einstein is the cosmology aspect, and then they have the standard model, and what they're trying to do, obviously, like you're saying, they want to unify these things. But that's why really Einstein. I don't know if you're familiar with the equivalence principle, as far as when in the vacuum, when obviously objects are dropped in a vacuum, they all fall at the same rate. The principle of equivalence. Exactly. So obviously, what they're trying to do right now is find this graviton to fit it into the model. But see, with Einstein now, he I don't know if you're familiar with obviously the entanglements, particle entanglement, electrons, and things of that nature. And basically, what Einstein said was, he called it spooky action at a distance, because he didn't believe that two electrons in two different spaces could actually be entangled. So you do something to one electron, it happens simultaneously to the other electron at the same time. So he said that there must be a form of essentially a hidden medium in which they're transmitting through. But if there's a hidden medium that they're transmitting through, then it means that that medium is traveling at the speed of light. So because they said the speed of light obviously equals mc squared, the c obviously is speed of light constant, is actually the speed limit, in so many words, of the universe. They can't be nothing faster than light. So that's why he had to say, you have to agree with the entanglement. He couldn't say, you know what I mean? So
yes, bro, you got it, bro. Time, bro. Look at it, bro. Like I said before, you got it. Time. So basically, here it is. If you really want to understand the universe, you have to basically, let me do it better. Okay. When you go home to take a shower, this is weird, but you get naked, don't you?
Right, yeah.
Take everything off. And then you shower, and then you put everything on. That's how the universe is. For you to experience the universe, we have to take all the constraints off. The reason why we're under constraints is because we're material. Material exists because of constraints.
Right.
Take the constraints off, we have to go to the 0 point. Right? That's what Einstein's talking about. They're talking about essentially basically a point of transition between material and immaterial. Right? And this point of transition can be modeled like this.
Okay.
I told you about the quarter, right? That's the quarter.
Yeah. Okay.
The quarter, the circle just became a portal. And with this portal, you can access all possibilities, right? And what I want people to understand, bro, is that all possibilities is exactly what intelligence is, right? Let me give you an example. Like, there is a very high chance, bro, that you can be a billionaire tomorrow, for example.
Say that again. What did you say? Say that again.
You can be a billionaire tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's possible.
Right.
Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, that's how money flows. Obviously, money's like water.
It's not even about money. It's just about the mathematical probability.
Okay.
There is a possibility that tomorrow you can be the richest guy in the world. That's possible. You see what I'm saying? That's what uncertainty is. The moment time passes, then it becomes certain.
So you're saying it contains all possibilities. So when time passes, okay, yeah, I get you.
So if you can take uncertainty and play with it like a thing, you can create reality with it.
Right.
But to do that, you have to understand that uncertainty is just all possibilities. And all possibilities, bro, that's what intelligence is.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Because when you want to make a decision, right, what does your brain do? You think of all the possibilities.
Right.
Pros and cons. What, isn't that what you do?
Yeah. And then the brain thinks of the most logical.
The most logical, and then it goes to that one.
Right.
That's, bro, it's so fundamental. It amazes me that people aren't aware of this shit.
Right.
You know? So it makes me feel like it was deliberately done to make people, I guess, be asleep in a way. Because this goes back to Bill Gates. This goes back to the whole material aspect of it. Because if you get people completely consumed by material, and you're the guy creating the material, then you can profit from it. The same way Bill Gates made the Microsoft, he made computers a household thing, right? But at the same time, he invented the virus. You know why? Because he knew that if a virus infects the computer, you're gonna have to get a new computer every 2 years.
Okay. Yeah, so, I see what you're saying. So you mean like obviously, so you're saying he gives you the computer program, but then he gives you the virus.
Thank you.
To slow the lifetime of that.
Thank you. He has you live under his mercy, essentially. He could have given you the access to true freedom, which is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to give people the access to all possibilities, not a limited possibility. All these capitalists, what they want to do is and the thing is, they're geniuses. So a lot of people will never tell their master plan to the average person. They'll go to the WHO and work with them with vaccines, but they'll have ulterior motivations.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? You have to think far. These dudes are gonna be mining the human body.
Right.
This is a fake computer. This body is the most efficient computer in the universe.
Most advanced computer.
And they're gonna be harboring their technology in this, and they're gonna be hosting. They're gonna host themselves within you, like a virus.
Okay. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying, bro?
Yeah.
This is deeper than people think. And I have foresight, so I'm thinking like this might not happen right now, but it's gonna happen within 10 years.
So how would you say that?
Go ahead.
So like, carry on.
We're gonna be in a situation, bro, where essentially we're gonna be like this. You have a choice to die, right? Or you have a choice to stay alive forever, but you're staying alive forever under the mercy of another human being, because your immaterial sense is going to be basically caged in a data server.
Right.
And the same way that they can ban you off Facebook, ban you off Twitter, they can do that to your entire existence if you don't do what they want.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to tell people, bro. You see what I'm saying? It's very deep.
But see, that's where they want to. Obviously, that's where they want to go next. Right now, obviously, they want to go to the transhumanism. That's where they want to go next. But see, what it is, I know that you were speaking about like evolution and things of that nature. They're saying that basically the transhumanism is the next evolution. They think that obviously evolution essentially stopped, and they want to basically be God and take the role of God, and then continue man's evolution, and then transhumanism the man's next evolution. So rather than research, so let's say a person loses their arm in the military or something like that, rather than do the research and deal with the stem cells and things of that nature to grow them back their arm, they want to give them essentially that robotic arm, which does the things that your arm couldn't do, be able to like punch through walls and things like that. Nature. They want the next level. Yeah, but they control it, so they control the maintenance of the arm, whereas it was your arm. The cells, your arm will essentially, recover and heal itself. You wouldn't need to go back to them. So it is a form of essentially almost like slavery. It's essentially, it's like cyber slavery where you're subject to them.
We're already slaves. Earth is.
There you go.
So here, I always tell people this, and they give me a weird look. Like, dude,